you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
So before we get started on today's subject, which has been quite controversial of late, and I think of an interest to all horse lovers, I just want to talk to you about horse welfare, because this subject we're talking about today is particularly important regarding horse welfare. So if horse welfare is of utmost importance when humans have any interaction with horses. Now, within the courses at International Horse College, you'll only see methods that promote safe and humane methods of interaction between horses and humans. So have a look now. If you're interested in horse welfare, if that's important to you, go to internationalhorsecollege.com. Now, this subject we've got today, we've brought on Julianne Humphries again, who's been a previous guest, of course, on Horse Chats. Now, Julianne's an eventer, but she's opened up a subject here, and she wants to bring it into a positive light and offer solutions, because that's just the sort of person she is. She's solution-orientated, and she's making a suggestion from, we call her a mediator. She'll talk about whether she's a mediator or what, her point of view, how we can possibly manage better the number of off-the-track horses going to abattoirs. Okay, so I'll introduce Julianne. Julianne, how are you?
Well, thanks, Glenys. Thanks very much for having me back, and thanks for helping me raise this discussion. And I think it's just simply a discussion. I'm not an expert on any particular statistic, and I'm not an advocate on any particular party here, but more, I guess, for the greater good of horses and horse sport in general. Yeah, it's good to be able to have a chat. Thank you.
I think this is an important subject. I'm going back possibly a little bit longer than you. There were no warm bloods in Australia. Everyone rode thoroughbreds. We went to the Olympics on thoroughbreds and won gold medals on thoroughbreds. And everywhere, as soon as you got over a certain age at Pony Club, you got a thoroughbred. You sort of graduated from ponies to a thoroughbred, most of them off the track. Okay, so it was really a part of Australia's sporting history, and I think everyone on the call, even though they may not have quite had the background with thoroughbreds, and overseas people as well don't have, there's quite a large number of thoroughbreds or off-the-track horses in Australia. If you're a horse lover and if you're worried about horse welfare, I think this is a problem that's been raised by not just the horse industry, but by people across, there was a big story that came up on a news channel that went across the general population, and a lot of people were horrified, threw their arms up in the air, and I think the racing industry has certainly improved since then. Yep. But yes. Now, are you a mediator? Like, who are the stakeholders here? Let's talk about the stakeholders. Yeah,
well, I think I'm in favour, let's face it, I'm in favour of a well-run abattoir. I'm quite happy with that. I don't have any problem with that. I am a big supporter of the horse racing industry right throughout, whether it be breeding, owning, training, riding, and I've had a...
Can we just go back to the abattoir again before everyone just turns off and goes, oh, no, I'm not listening to this. Julianne's in favour of abattoirs. So when you say a well-run abattoir, not one where horses are mistreated, where horses are going along there and they don't know what's coming, they're not mistreated, they're basically just there one moment, not the other, but horse welfare is a top consideration there, because there are times that horses get terrible injuries and are in pain.
And I think, honestly, Glenys, I think that light has already been spotlighted. I think that the focus has already been there for quite a while now, and I think the abattoir, they're already being scrutineered.
Yes.
So I think that boat's sailing quite well, and I think there's results already in that area, and I know they're certainly being watched. So I think that's, as I say, a well-run abattoir. For instance, one of my last thoroughbreds that I, kept for many years actually before I sold her, she was born in an abattoir. The gentleman in the abattoir was so nice that they saw the mare was in foal. They just put her out in the paddock in part of the complex,
Yep.
and let the mare have the foal, and then actually found them a home. The mare and the foal never got to see any of the other bits that go on that the reason why they actually turned up there in the first place. But these people that run these places and work in these places, they're often very, very humane people, and they just everybody's cat has to eat, everybody's dog has to eat. Where do people think that meat comes from? So these are things, when I've done my research to raise this discussion, these are the points that people have made to me, So there's, a well-run abattoir, nothing where you see any cruelty or anything like that, but just a well-run abattoir that's very humane.
All right. I just wanted to make sure we cleared that up before we went on and talked about the other stakeholders. So, keep talking about the other stakeholders.
Yeah, so then of course there's the racing industry, like the racehorse industry complete. So right from the owners and the breeders and the then there's the sales and then they end up on the track and they got the trainers and the riders and it's a massive industry.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's again, the spotlight's already there. They're already being scrutinized. Part of it is being scrutinized, and we'll talk about maybe some parts that are not scrutinized. But your trainers, for instance, the trainers are already being scrutinized. The actual horse race events are being scrutinized. All of that, the light's already there. And I'm definitely, as I say, I love horse racing. I think horses love racing. So I'm happy there. And then your third party that's very involved here is all of the organisations that are running programs that cover the aftercare of these horses when they are not racing.
Yep. Like when they've retired from racing. Yep.
For whatever reason, they might not even make it to their first race.
Right.
They're just a horse that was bred for racing. It has a registration, but some of them don't even make it to the first race.
Yes.
Some of them have a full and very successful racing career and everything in between. And so there's organisations already in full swing looking after that. But we still seem to have a problem, don't we?
So what do you think is the core of the problem then? We're breeding too many horses? Are we just not... I don't know. Tell me what the core of the problem is.
I've been watching this just as a sideliner for such a long time now, many, many years. And I think for many, many years we've been, watching so many racehorses being born. And, I don't even completely just talk about thoroughbreds. It can be the standard breds as well. But, there's a lot of racehorses being born and they're not really scrutinized on the types that are being born. So they can be born as a roarer. They can be born with really bad leg defects. They can be born, with parrot mouth. They can have all of these issues that are genetic thrown issues that, passed on down a line. And how often did I've heard of people go, all that line are roarers, or all that line have parrot mouths, all that line seem to be behind at the knee there, back at the knee, things that actually do affect the horse for the rest of its life. And I think the core, the first link in the chain seems to be the last link being addressed, and it's barely addressed. It's like it's barely even looked at, as where there's such a huge amount of focus on all the other links of the chain as the horse is going throughout its life, because these days, as soon as you put in your registration for your foal, its data is followed all the way through its life till the day it dies. That's something that, the RSPCA and the, Racing Australia and the Breeding Authority of Australia, they've all gotten together and created this database. But the first link in the chain is the core of it. It's not, and it's the one that's barely looked at. They're all, if you read, you hear the news, you read all the stories, you're just in the industry, so you can see what's going on, and you see that the aftercare and the scrutineering of what's happening while it's racing, all of that part is the part that all of the focus is on, and, to the degree where trainers are frightened at the moment. If their horse, when they say, oh, look, sorry, mate, your horse is too slow, we need to find it a home, the trainers are really scared where it might end up.
Okay.
Because they can get their licence revoked, and they can get huge fines. So these days for me as an eventer, before I take on a horse to put it in my eventing stable, the trainer says to me, now, what's going to happen to him if he doesn't make an eventer? They're frightened. But no one's scared to breed them.
Yes. They probably think that they've got a thoroughbred mare, they've just got to find a cheap stallion, and all of a sudden they might have a brilliant horse. But, when you look at brilliant horses, they're usually ones that have got top sires, top dams, and they come from a good line.
They do.
So it's like a daydream, isn't it? It's just a dream.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I understand not all horses are perfect, and finding the horse with the perfect conformation is like finding, a needle in a haystack that doesn't exist. But, if you, let's say we had some kind of body, a governing body, that can scrutineer what would be a birth defect that is genetically passed on that might hinder this horse's life.
Yep.
It'll hinder its it could make it dangerous on the track. It might, it might make it so that it could cause an accident on the track, or it could make it so that when it's, it races and then it's after, its career after racing, or it's, happy days in the paddock, it might turn out as poor as a crow because it can't eat grass because it's a parrot mouth.
This brings us back to the abattoirs, that, sometimes it can be going to an abattoir is better than starving to death in a paddock.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That I would think that much kinder, but that's a personal opinion, I suppose. I'm trying to look at this, in a view of, just really, I'm trying to just be a fence sitter and just look at the facts on what we can see happening. And the fact is that first link in the chain is not addressed. There's no capping on breeding, the numbers are not capped at all.
So what have you got? Have you got numbers on how many are being born and then how many of those are finishing up at the abattoir?
Yeah, well, isn't that an interesting thing, Glenys? I have searched everywhere, and you cannot find a statistic on that you can trust.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. Everywhere you look, there's a different figure.
Yep. What sort of ranges are they?
Well, it's huge. It's ridiculous. I won't even go there. But there's obviously enough. There's enough being born that there's too many coming off the track or not even making it to the track. We know that there's too many not making it on the racetrack because we're having this huge problem of, what do we do with all these thoroughbreds? So we're, creating these off-the-track classes at the shows and doing all this nice stuff. But, the short and the long of it is that there's too many. And it's obviously creating a problem because that's what all the big hoo-ha is about at the moment, is the fact that, there's so many of them. And the people that are, trying to do the right thing, creating those rehabilitation facilities for the off-the-trackers, to rehome them and all that. They're strapped to the boards. They've got so many thoroughbreds coming out their ears that, that are not that great, in the way that they're not really built for eventing, which is a shame, like they used to be. They used to be real nice, big middle distance, long distance horses that we could event, and we didn't have to go looking for our warm blood lines. But now we're sort of forced to go looking for warm blood lines because the masses that are being produced are all short distance. Well, the bulk of them are short distance runners. But
even thoroughbreds, the way, they're trained to gallop. That's what they're trained to do. So they learn that, they gallop, they do that's what they've got as their flight response, and they can really gallop. And that makes it so that they're not suitable for everyone. There's a lot of people that haven't got the balance, the coordination, the skill to be able to ride, the confidence to be able to have a thoroughbred and have that quick flight response. That can make them a dangerous horse, even though there's no problem at all. They've got to have the right owner and the right training.
Yeah, this is so true. This is so true. There's horrific stories of, places that have tried to do the right thing and give these off-the-track horses nice forever homes, and then it's gone terribly wrong. And there's even fatalities of people that have come out of that. People have tried to ride them, and it's gone very bad.
Yeah, there was a very public one a while ago where a girl was enrolled in a Jillaroo course and died, and Royal Commission afterwards, and that was off a thoroughbred off the track.
Off the tracker.
Yep.
Yes, it was, and he was probably I think I know. He actually was a beautiful horse. He turned out to be rather good under the right rider.
Yep, but not the sort of horse that you can just put any rider with.
He's not a school pony, no.
No.
Not by any means.
So the main reason then the horses are finishing at the abattoir, what you're saying is that, because even if we had the quality, even if we had like a restriction on the stallions or a restriction and said they've got to be sound, they've got to have the legs that we need and eliminate the parrot mouth and things like that. So even if the quality improved, we'd still have a lot of horses ending up the abattoir. So are you saying that the numbers are too high? I mean, why are these horses ending up at the abattoir? Is it because of the numbers?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good question. Is it because of the numbers, or is it just because of the quality? Now, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I'm looking at the other areas that are already got the wheels in motion of this type of capping and scrutineering, you might say. So, for instance, with dogs these days, what they've done is they've made it that you have to be a registered breeder to breed the dogs that have papers, and those dogs that have papers have to come with certifiable proof that they don't pass on hip dysplasia. So the wheels are already turning, why aren't these wheels turning in the racehorse industry? That's my question.
So I'm sort of thinking about Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Jockey Club, because racing's very popular. They didn't want to send the racehorses just anywhere, so they actually started riding schools, and there's a few riding schools there. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this. I've been to Hong Kong a couple of times. I've been to the riding schools. I've been to the racetrack. I understand, I think a little bit of the idea is that the owners, the trainers, the breeders, somehow in the registration, a certain portion of that goes towards contributing to the off-the-track horses' welfare. So the riding schools get these horses, but they're actually paid to take care of them. Would that itself restrict the numbers? That if there was fees associated with the breeding, the registration, the racing and everything else, and then a certain percentage of those fees went towards the ongoing care of thoroughbreds after they finish racing, is that a way to restrict the numbers? Because people, instead of breeding their own horse, would be more likely to go into a syndicate with other people. So instead of 10 people breeding a horse each, they'd have one horse between the 10 of them.
Yeah.
Is that, is that a suggestion? Yeah.
Yeah, you look at flow-on effects and so on, and how, just how you'd actually run it. Now, if you were to cap the numbers and if you were to scrutineer the stock that's being bred, the animal itself would be worth more. So a stud fee would get higher, I'm imagining, and the foal on the ground the sale price of that would get higher. So you'd probably end up with a world where there's a little bit more money to spend on each horse and thinking a few less horses. That's sort of, And then, as you say, there's all, at the moment, I read a thing, now this is off my memory, which is, that's not notes written in front of me, but I think even this morning I read a thing that said that there's, you can look at Association of Australia, 35 cents from each foal return, I think it was, goes toward the aftercare of the foal, and with only 35 cents attached to it, they make enough money to fund their organisation that actually takes care of all that data and so on. Obviously there's basically the detail that I took out of that was, geez, there must be a lot of foals being born if you only need to take 35 cents.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
Really? that's just unfathomable, really. But so the wheels are already turning a little bit, the wheels are already turning, and the RSPCA's already got they got their thing written about, they're only got one line written about the focus and restrictions and things on the breeding, and then they got about 4 pages written on aftercare. You know what I mean? But they're looking there.
Yeah.
Just nothing's getting done.
So there's been a lot of, extra classes, extra recognition, extra funding available for these horses. And people are starting to get the benefits because they are athletes. They're bred as athletes. And, some of them can really, really jump.
Yeah.
Some of them are lovely. Some of them are really good for the budget-conscious person who's very keen on horses, wants to get ahead, prepared to put the time and the effort and work in to get a lovely horse. So there's been a lot of funding there. So I know you're talking about capping the numbers because that funding is not catering for all the horses. But if the fees were increased to cater for more horses, then that automatically caps the numbers without saying, right, we're not going to breed anymore. Instead of having that hard, we're just not going to do it anymore, the numbers are being capped because of the cost of keeping racehorses and keeping them going, which of course, then that turns to the punters, I suppose, in the end. They end up paying more. But that's just the way it is. But we need to look after the horse because the horse comes in, it's born into racing, it races, it does its job. We need to then look after it afterwards. This is
the thing. And so I also have viewed it in a way that, we're considering the greater good of the horse.
Yes,
right?
I think so.
We're
I think that's important.
An advocate for any one party. But so you look at what's been done already. As I say, look at other areas where this type of thing's already been done. So, for instance, abalone in Australia. Abalone, it had to be a certain size and you could only take so many. And you could only go ab diving and take your quota if you were a registered, certified abalone diver. Okay, and then they also said, and we can only sell them overseas. Well, that's a shame. But anyway, now, with that, those rules were brought in because, the governing bodies there thought it best to preserve abalone. They're doing it for the greater good. They're not doing it for the ab diver. They're not doing it for the restaurant. They're not doing it for the consumer. They're doing it for the greater good of abalone. Now, can we do something for the greater good of horses that is of the like? You know, like go back to the first link. Go back to the harvesting, the first link.
Yep. The quality of the horse. Yep.
Yeah, the your scrutiny of what you're actually producing, and cap the numbers somehow. Whether that be like the dog people or even the abalone people. It's registered breeders. You know, so that's how their effective way of capping it, because, you know, any Joe Blogs can't just go and breed heaps and heaps of them, you know, and produce them with papers and certificates and so on. It's the registered breeders that do that. You know, can that happen with race horses? Well, you know, that's my question.
There's lots of questions here, Julianne, and I think that the main thing is that we're looking for is a solution. So I would certainly welcome listeners, you know, if they have another point of view or just a supportive point of view, that we're just looking for a solution. What is the solution to these off-the-track horses, the huge numbers of the off-the-track horses going to abattoirs in Australia? And I think if you've got solutions, then let us know. If people have got solutions, Julianne, what's your contact details if they want to contact you about it?
Well, my email is probably best, ja@equestrianlessons.com.au. And, it's interesting that I put forward my email to be contacted on this. And I must remind people, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm just simply someone that's ridden thoroughbreds for many, many years now. I have trained, I have done track work, I have been to the sales and done the yearling sales. You know, I've sort of had my finger in the pie even the thoroughbred studs. I've worked there, all of this. I'm not claiming to be an expert. I'm not claiming to be an advocate for any particular party. I had half my people, like I researched this quite a lot, and with various different people that are within the industry, and even people just as sideliners that are interested in horses, all kinds of people I actually interviewed prior to you and I having our chat today. And there was a few people that said, oh, gee, you know, you're going to really raise fire here, you know, like you're playing with fire raising this subject. And I'm thinking, well, is it possible that we can just, you know, raise the subject in a really passive way, just a really constructive way that is for the greater good of horses, not as an advocate for, you know, any one particular party. So, I'd be interesting to see what emails I get.
If you're coming from a few different areas, you're coming from, you know, I ride horses, I ride thoroughbreds, I've got a little bit of a racing background, I'm looking for a solution, you know, and that's the way it's come across to me. Because you're not an advocate for any particular party very strongly, you're just saying, what's the solution here? You know, if we keep talking about it and, you know, then we're going to come up with a solution. But if we avoid the subject, the solution's not going to arrive.
And I think, the issue that I guess that I found along the way, the first positive part of it was that everybody agreed that there's too many and the quality's disappearing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Every single person that I interviewed agreed with that, no matter where they came from within the industry. But the second thing that some of them agreed with was, that you won't keep everybody happy. You won't completely satisfy everybody. And I guess that's the tricky part that people don't want to deal with.
I think you've just got to satisfy the majority, haven't you? Isn't that what politicians do?
Well, I'm hoping we satisfy horses, and I'm hoping in the long run, you know, like as I say, I look at the other wheels that are turning in other areas, and sure, there's a few people that are disgruntled that they can't breed 4,000 German Shepherds in their backyard. Or, you know, there's a few people disgruntled that they can't go and come home with a whole bag of abs on a weekend. You know, there's going to be a few sort of half disgruntled people out there, no matter which way you sort of manage it. But I think even at the moment, people aren't satisfied. They're not satisfied right now. So it's a little bit like ripping the Band-Aid off, you know, like it's sort of going to hurt a little anyway, but it might, you know, it might be for the greater good of horses, I'm hoping. And then, you know, people settle into the idea and hopefully it actually affects people in a good way where, you know, they're getting paid more for what they do and the horses are worth more and there's less injuries on the track, less accidents on the track. You know, if the horses are not having problems, you know, they're going to perform better and then they're going to have a better afterlife because they are performing well and they're, you know, quality horses.
Yeah. And I think if you're interested in this, you know, looking at it for the greater good, you know, and I think if you've got solutions, contact Julianne. And Julianne, you know, if you get a flood of inquiries and you change your thoughts on this, it'd be great to have you back again. But whatever you talk about, Julianne, you know, you've already covered a couple of good topics. So certainly we'd love to have you back again. And I think any subject that you raise is going to just create an awareness or just give people the education that they're looking for in this podcast. So you're certainly a welcome guest and we'd love to have you back soon.
Oh, thank you very much. Really appreciate it, Glenys. Thanks for your time.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Talk soon. Bye.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.